Having opened the floodgates to what is it to be English, what is it to be British, and so on, I noticed there's an article in the Times today by Trevor Phillips, and he thinks that being British is having the right to offend or having the right to be offended. That's what makes us British. It touches on this fundamental paradox in our society. Britain, once the birthplace of free speech, is now navigating a complex landscape where the freedom to express oneself without fear of retribution is under siege from both state and from corporate influences. As the leaves turn and the season transitions into autumn, it's a fitting metaphor for the political climate that we're in. What once was the season of mists and mellow fruitfulness has become the month of mudraking and mudslinging. And in this political harvest where parties and movements vie for public favour, we're caught in the throes of the so-called culture wars. Phillips rightly points out the culture wars are far from over, despite claims to the contrary. And the political landscape is rife with contradictions. On the one hand, there's a genuine need to protect minorities and ensure fair treatment, as seen in the landmark legal cases like that of the Birmingham dinner ladies. On the other, the pendulum has swung so far that it now risks trampling on the very freedoms that it seeks to uphold. The situation in the Cambridge County Council, where a lesbian employee was penalised for questioning the gender identity of a colleague's dog, is emblematic of a growing absurdity. In a nation where there is no legal right to be not to be offended, we find ourselves increasingly bound by unwritten rules that demand compliance to the point of absurdity. What was once a society that prided itself on the robust exchange of ideas is now one where the spectre of offence looms over every workplace and public space. In this climate, freedom of thought and speech are not just endangered, but are actually actively policed by a combination of corporate policies and social media mobs. The idea that dissent or disagreement, even when respectful, can lead to professional ruin is an affront to the British tradition of robust debate. Yet this is the reality we're fast approaching. I believe that it's perfectly right, A, to change your mind, and B, to hold a view that is different to my own. And it's worth considering, what this means. How did we get to this point where everybody is tribal? Much of the blame lies in what Phillips calls progressive overreach, a well-intentioned but ultimately misguided attempt to legislate morality and to enforce social conformity. This overreach has been weaponized in boardrooms and HR departments where thought crimes are punished with a severity that would make Orwell blush. The example of the compliance test that Phillips took, where he was expected to condemn the mildest expressions of confusion over gendered identity, is a microcosm of the problem. Such tests are not about fostering genuine understanding or empathy. They're about enforcing conformity, team membership to a particular worldview. It's not just legally dubious, it's morally indefensible. And it's in this context that the right to offend becomes not just a cultural quirk, but a diplomatic necessity. The right to offend, the right to be offended, the ability to speak one's mind, to question, to dissent. These are the bedrocks of free society. Without them, we risk becoming a nation of conformists, afraid to speak, to think, to even joke for fear of transgressing some invisible line. I like somebody not because of what they say, but because of who they are. They may say appalling things. They may say nothing. It's not going to change whether I like them, is it? Sometimes people I like say really quite rude things to me. I still like them deep down. Sometimes I might say rude things. I hope not, but I might. Sometimes not even aware of what we say, that we cross a line. But that is independent of whether we like somebody, or should be. The stakes are high. If this trend continues, where we are judged on what we say, and whether we conform to a particular group or not, whether we're in this tribal group or that tribal group, it won't just be individual livelihoods that are at risk. It will be the very fabric of our society, of our democracy, of our country. We must resist the urge to retreat into echo chambers and instead embrace the messiness of open debate, open discussion, open conversation, the trade of other views. That's surely what a conversation is. If we all share the same view, there's no point in talking. As Phillips notes, most social progress in history has become because courageous individuals choose to put justice before tranquility. To be British is to embrace this tension, to recognise that there is a right to offend, and that's not just about being gratuitously provocative, but about safeguarding the space for all ideas, even the uncomfortable ones. It's about ensuring that, in the words of Keats, we do not succumb to the poetry of earth, which is never dead, but remains alive and vibrant, even if it occasionally ruffles a few feathers. The culture wars may be the battlefield, but the prize is much greater, the preservation of a society where freedom of thought and expression are not just tolerated, but celebrated. If we lose sight of our freedom, we risk becoming strangers in our own land, bound not by shared values, but by the fear of causing offence, bound by paperwork rather than empathy and an emotional sense of togetherness, neighbourliness. And that, more than anything, would be a betrayal of what it truly means to be British.